All right, we're going to give Reader just a couple minutes. She should be joining. All right. And it's still recording, correct, Fully DS? Okay, because I just took off the thing on there. Let's see. Is everybody here? Do I have? Let's see. Okay. So we should be good. This Reader should be joining us in just a second. So let's go ahead. We'll give her a couple more minutes. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting on Miss Reader to join us? She had a couple parents asking about the link. So does anybody want to unmute and ask any questions real quick while or just say hello and let us know you're here?
Hello.
Here we go. See? I can't see.
Hey, I have a question.
Yes.
Second grade with Mr. Gale. Eliana she told me that they started with music and then this week now they're in art. So I was just confused and just wanting clarification.
So they'll be rotating every, what, 4 weeks, Mr. Gale? Right?
Yes, I think so.
So that they'll just change specials like every 4 weeks, kind of like we did last year, but we just didn't go to specials. Like specials kind of came.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing.
That makes sense. I guess I was thinking that it was one special per quarter. I think that's how they did it last year. So I was just confused, but that's great. Thank you.
So they'll rotate. They'll do 2 per quarter. So they'll cover each special in one by the time the end of the semester. So they'll have done all of them and then they'll do the same thing next time. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Checking on Miss Reader to see if she's about ready to get started. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead. If nobody else has any more questions. Miss Reader, are you in here? There she is.
Yes, I am.
Okay, good deal.
Out.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we haven't got started. We just answered a couple questions. So we're going to get started. So this is our curriculum night. I have a couple more people waiting.
I'll take care of them. You get going.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You can see them, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
This is our curriculum night. I know it's a little bit different than what we normally do, but we're going to get started with, let me do my, and everything will be recorded for those of you just joining us. Everything will be recorded. Why are things looking weird? All right, sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical. My slide is not, that's why. So here's some of the policies you have for your child's advocacy. And all of these are the same for all 4 advocacy classes. So just so you know, all of these policies that we're about to present are all the same.
Understand that there are circumstances beyond our control, or there's legally documented accommodations in place. We talk to those students as well.
Can I have can I have everybody in mute?
Do not have a specific reason why it's extension or a due date. We do give that to the students. We do have.
Do we know what's going on? Okay. I don't know what that was, but okay. Sorry. So here's our birthday procedures. If your child has a birthday, due to COVID, all the snacks have to be individually wrapped. They need to be store-bought with a label on them, so that way we know what ingredients are in there, because we have a lot of kids that have allergies as well. If your child wants to invite friends to the birthday parties or anything like that, please have your child give those to their advocacy teacher, and they'll make sure that those go in Friday folders. We'd rather the kids not pass those out to each other, because then there are hurt feelings, and then they have to answer the questions of why they didn't invite somebody to a party. So it's just a lot easier if we do that. And those will come home in Friday folders. And then snacks. I'm not sure how many of you were aware, but we do have 2 snack times. We do one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And please send a healthy one. A lot of our little friends love to eat like cookies first thing in the morning. And so if we could send some healthy snacks with them, we don't have that crash right after that. So, and a lot of them, I hope all of you are taking advantage of the free lunches that we have. You do have to order a week ahead of time. So make sure that you can go on the Westgate page to do that, but it's free for the entire year. So that's nice. But make sure that you go on and order those. And then if you want to send some extra food, a lot of parents send extra food with their kiddos, just in case they don't really like the hot lunch that comes. And that way their kiddos are not hungry, because nobody really wants a hangry child. And then Friday folders. We will send folders home every single Friday that'll have graded work in them. We'll have notes. Like this last week, we had pictures coming up next Friday on the 10th. So you'll need to fill out that form and send it back with your child. But please make sure those Friday folders come back empty on Monday or Tuesday of the following week. A lot of kids are bringing theirs back, but they're still full of all of the graded work and stuff. And I know that last year we didn't do that, so it's kind of new. So we wanted just to remind you to check their backpacks for those Friday folders. Also, the RISE certificates that we'll talk about in just a little bit will also be in those Friday folders. So make sure that you go through them with your kiddo and take out everything that's in there, and then send them back empty. But a lot of them are pretty good about bringing them out. They just need to get the stuff out. So, and I'm going to let Mr. Gill talk about this page.
Yeah, so just some of the things that we use in our classroom. We'll be using depth and complexity cards to kind of dive deeper into each of our subject areas and kind of really get into some of the different content within there too. And then gifted education. We provide gifted education for all of our students. And we do this by giving choice to show understanding. We dive deeper into the subjects, and we give them opportunity to explain as well. And then sometimes we'll even compact a unit, depending on how well they do on a pretest and so on. And you can find, oops.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And then in the Friday folders, you can find some Scholastic book orders that we'll send home every so often. So check those, and you can order books. And then we also use Infinite Campus, and this is where you can check their grades. So that link is there for you. And if you have any issues with Infinite Campus, just contact Rochelle Goforth, and her email is right there for you. And then you can also subscribe to your child's teacher's page, and this is where you can get all of our weekly updates in regards to content and what they're learning that week as well.
All right.
And then we're starting this program called RISE, and this is for our positive behavior intervention. And so RISE stands for respect, integrity, safety, and empathy. And like Ms. Hamilton said, you can find some of those RISE recognition cards if a teacher catches your student doing something awesome, showing respect, integrity, being safe in the classroom, or even showing empathy towards others. And then they'll be congratulated as well on those positive traits.
Right. Ms. Foley-Dees is going to talk about the daily schedule.
I have to apologize. I was just having so much fun watching and listening to everybody else. When it comes to our daily schedule, it is laid out so it is a true flow of everything going from beginning all the way to the end. As you can see in the beginning, we do start in the morning of just that morning check-in with advocacy. Students will come in, put their stuff in their cubbies, and get ready for the day. Students sit down, get our daily updates of things that to be going on, and then we're able to say something about ourselves, knowing that we're going to make those RISE decisions, and then move on into our other classes. Literacy is broken into 2 of us are dealing with second grade and 2 of us are dealing with first grade, simply because you cannot have, over 50 students in one class. So that's why it's broken down that way. Then we will take a break for recess, going outside, getting our energy, and then coming back in for math. And with math, it is broken up the same way. It is nice with math, though, is because kids just had that wonderful energy. Then they're able to focus and then move out for their lunch recess. And then they'll come back in for lunch with their advocacy class. After which, we have our calm down time, dealing with our joy of reading, putting those skills into use, so that then we are prepared going into science or social studies. Then we get our next break. Purposeful playtime is either outside or inside, but again, it's to recharge ourselves, get our bodies moving, have that energy to continue on. After which, we do have our snack time with advocacy in the afternoon, and then we will break up for specials.
So all of you know that we do the Super Kids program, kindergarten through second grade. So this is a lot of what we do in both first and second, but in a couple of the other slides, we have them differentiated a little bit more so you can see specifically what first grade literacy, Super Kids literacy covers and what second grade Super Kids covers. But our goal for your child this year is just to really help them to gain a passion for reading. I know that especially in first grade, it's really hard because they're learning their letters, their sounds, and they're learning to blend those. But the more that your child can be reading each night with you, whether it's you're reading a book to them or you're reading a book together, they really need to be reading at least 10 to 20 minutes per night. You can do like the 5-finger rule when you're looking at just right books for your kiddo. If you could open up, like if you go to the library and you open up a book to any page, if they miss more than 5 words, that book's probably a little too hard for them. So it's kind of how you can gauge which book would be maybe a right fit for your child to read. Now, Super Kids, it's a very sequential instruction for us. And it just leads to that mastery of the content and of the standards for all of them. So, and it's also broken down into several components. So for your, we have the phonics and the spelling, which is consistent with first and second grade. So we have our beginning and ending sounds, short and long vowels, word families. There's lots of word families, blends and digraphs, and then inflectional endings. And when we're starting our reading, we're going to talk about the main elements of the stories, which is the character and the setting, the problems and solutions. We'll talk about comprehension, because a lot of kids maybe can read really quickly and they can go through a lot of the books, but it's also important that they remember what they're reading and they're able to retell and understand what they've read. So we'll also be focusing on a lot of that as well. I know a lot of kids can read really fast and get through a lot of content, but if they're not understanding, then we're going to kind of keep them where we need them at the time, so that way they can make sure that they're really grasping the knowledge that they're taking in. And we'll read a lot of different texts this year. Super Kids is chock full of fiction and nonfiction books, so it'll be a lot of fun to go through that. We'll use a lot of different reading strategies to help them with their decoding skills. But the spelling is also a really big component of it. So your kids will be spelling each week. They need to be practicing their spelling as much as they can. It's really important for them because the spelling, and if they're talking out the sounds, if your child ever asks you how to spell something, make sure that you just sound it for them, because this will really build those spelling skills for them, and they'll be able to in turn use that in their writing, which is really what your goal is for them. You really want them to be able to use those in their writing. So, and then we're going to move into the writing genres that we have. So we have narrative, we'll do personal narrative, opinion writing, informative, and descriptive. So they'll learn about writing lists, writing how-tos, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun for them to do. And then we do the grammar piece of it. So there's a lot of components that are put into our literacy. We will have Spelling City again this year. We don't have all of the rosters up yet, but we will have them up pretty quickly. Your child also should be enrolled in the Super Kids program. If you haven't gotten an email, you should within the next few days asking you to join. You can access all of the content online on Super Kids. There's lots of different games they can play. There's and it's really good for helping them build their skills. They can access all of the library that Super Kids has to offer as well. So the kids really enjoy it. So make sure that you take advantage of that. And sometimes that might go to your spam folder. So if you're not getting an email that asks you to join, you might check your spam and make sure it didn't go in there. And always just email your teachers as well if that's not, if you didn't get a link to it. And I'm going to let one of our second grade teachers talk about literacy for second grade.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mrs. Reeder. I'm teaching second grade literacy along with Ms. Foley Diaz. So we just wanted to cover some of the things that Super Kids teaches. We reviewed some of the things that first grade taught last year in Super Kids during our warm-up unit, and then we've been talking about short and long vowels and word families. We're going to be going into blends and digraphs just like first grade. We're also going to be building on that with superlatives and homophones, compound words, things like that. We also will have spelling words. We'll also have Spelling City, which kids love the games to practice their spelling words that way. So it might be one of those things that we're not requiring them to practice their spelling words, but they do really enjoy it because it's like playing a computer game. We will be diving deeper into the comprehension strategies in second grade. So first grade really did more of like using their background knowledge and using their and making predictions, things like that. We are going to be digging deeper by talking about main idea and details, text evidence, making connections to the book or connections from the book to the world. So they might read something and think, oh, I saw that on TV, or oh, my cousin does that. We're gonna be drawing conclusions. We're gonna summarize what we've read, talk about different points of view of the story. We will also be using the same reading strategies to help children learn to decode. A lot of the strategies that they're learning in their phonics and spelling is going to help them with their decoding. So as they learn it in one, it should be connecting and then helping them as they're doing it. They really are connected. Then we have some vocabulary work we're going to be doing as well. We're going to talk about onomatopoeia, which is a fun word to say, but also really fun for the kids. We'll talk about idioms and some figurative language. Then we'll get into synonyms, antonyms, homonyms, homophones, and alliteration, which is also much fun. The kids have a good time making things sound like making sounds with words and rhyming and things like that. For second grade writing and grammar, we have more genres that we're going to be writing than first grade. So we will do some poetry writing. We will also do narrative, opinion, informative, and descriptive, which is same as first grade. But we're also going to be adding in some correspondence, which is letter writing and email writing. I don't know if they'll be writing emails. And then some explanatory writing. So just explaining how things are done. You can see the list of grammar on our PowerPoint here. We are going to be covering quite a bit in our grammar work. Things like pronouns and singular and possessive nouns, like teaching when to use the correct apostrophe. I hope it will stick for the rest of their lives. Just saying. Editing marks, using contractions, adverbs, irregular verbs and plurals, some of those things. So Super Kids is great because we have like 16 or how many, Mrs. Hamilton, 20 units. And so they're short and they're quick.
We're 18.
18, right. And then we spiral through some of those topics. So we might do poetry at the beginning of the year, and then we'll come back to it middle year, we'll come back to it end of the year, that kind of thing. Did I leave anything out, Mrs. Hamilton?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And second grade literacy, just for the parents, Miss Reeder is teaching one of the classes for second grade literacy, and then Miss Foley Diaz is teaching the other second grade literacy, and then Mr. Gale and I are teaching first grade Super Kids. So just in case you're wondering, and we will be sending you and we'll try to do that in by next week. We'll send you an email letting you know who your child has for each class. So that way you kind of know where they're going each day. All right.
Ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, first grade math. This is, I have to apologize because as a team, we're excited about each area and we want to say so much, but we're limited to time, so please forgive us. When it comes to first grade math, we have one of those awesome programs, Big Ideas. And with this program, it is specifically designed so that kids are truly understanding the information that they're looking at. Being able to connect with that information, see it in real world, and then gather those ideas. How can we address it? Once they have that, then going into the problem solving is right there. So we are very excited about this particular program. When it comes to first grade, it's kind of straightforward. Very nice when it comes to our first quarter, because this is going to be your number systems. We're going to look at extending the counting sequence, getting ideas of how to use the place values, and of course the properties of I'm having too much fun with this. Please forgive me. The properties and then operations, knowing exactly, oh, dude, we're bringing those together. So we're adding, we're going to separate them. So we're taking them apart. And that's exactly the excitement that we want from the kids. Second quarter, starting to go into the winter time. That's when we're really thinking about those algebraic functions, problem solving. Look at things that are a little bit bigger. So we're going to be stepping away from just doing it within 10, but going within 20. Applying all of those properties of operations specifically to real life, seeing how those parts are moving. Again, working with addition and subtraction. Then after our winter break, this is when we're going into geometry. Seeing all of the shapes around us, understanding how those shapes are going to fit together. This, I'll tell you right now, is probably one of the funnest quarters that are there, if that's even something I can say, but I did. Fourth quarter, this is the standard of measurement. Basic data and probability, measuring lengths, getting an idea of, again, from geometry, different sizes that we're moving into. Being able to tell time, not only just from our digital clock, but from the good old analog. In addition, we're also going to be interpreting data. This is a fun area, so I hope your kids have fun this year because we will definitely do so. I just have to double check slides here to make sure that was everything for math. Okay, I'm going to hand it on over to you.
All right.
So for second grade math, it's kind of a lot like first grade math, where our year is laid out. We'll start with number systems and then go. So for number systems for first quarter, we'll talk about operations and using base 10. We'll work within adding and subtracting 100, and then we'll go into quarter two, where we are working on algebra and functions. So we will work on problem solving, lots of word problems, and then we will even be working with equal groups, and that'll be a lot of like arrays and everything like that. And then for third quarter, we'll be working with geometry. So like Ms. Foley Diaz had said, seeing those shapes everywhere in the world and making that connection. And then we'll be talking about the attributes as well. For fourth quarter, we'll be talking about measurement data and probability. So we'll be measuring a lot of things around the classroom and learning how to use the ruler. And then we'll be relating that to addition and subtraction. And then we will work with time and money. And then we'll go into talking about data and graphing and how to really interpret that data as well. So really for second grade, we just dive deeper into those concepts and kind of expand our skills as well.
Okay, so now we're going to go, and for the content for math, and we're going to have Ms. Foley Diaz and I are teaching first grade standards for math, and Mr. Gale and Ms. Reeder are teaching second grade standards. So, and now Ms. Foley Diaz is going to share about first grade science.
I'm hoping some of you have the second graders and you're remembering last year what we had with science, but science is one of those fun subject areas that we want kids to be able to play in. It's got to be some type of project that they're able to develop with this. So science is something that as first and second graders, we are trying to embed that adventure so that when they move on, they're going to take this information and grow even further. So as you can see with first quarter, we want kids to truly understand the ability of vibrations from the light as well as sound, because they need to be able to investigate that. Why does it happen? Be able to understand what's happening, just kind of like what we were doing in math, understand it, connect it, be able to play with it and put something together. So with first quarter, that's exactly what you're going to see. Kids are needing to understand not only where the sound and light is coming from, but how it's used. From that, we get to go to Earth and space. Earth and space is that big one where kids truly have to understand where we are in the solar system, understand exactly how we have the sun in one place, what it does, and then the moon in another and what it does. And then we can also use the sound and light from our first quarter as far as, oh, well, now we understand exactly what we are seeing in the solar system. So that is going to be a fun one. Then, of course, after winter break, we're going to be with animals. And animals is going to be something in which, gosh, this is so much. We're going to investigate not only how animals are meeting their own needs for survival, but we need to understand exactly what the genetics are for that. They need to be able to understand why we have things that are different, why things that are similar, where that comes from. And that is such a huge concept because it's also going to lead into insects, which thankfully, fourth quarter is going to lead us into plants. With all of these areas, kids will be able to build their own project. Just to give you an example from last year, sorry, because I'm going to talk with this one because science is one of those areas that we have lots of fun with. But one of our projects from last year with animals was for them to understand exactly how they get their differences. What are their strengths? And then how we as people can use those strengths. So we had our kids vote on, well, if they were going to be building some animal strength, what would it be? So we got to vote exactly on one of those animals that we had investigated. And they decided that they liked the way that a crayfish used its hands to pick things up because it was really strong. So we got to build our own crayfish arm. And that was something that the kids, you could see their lights just going off and having fun. So that's what we're trying to create with science as much as possible. And as you can tell, I will talk about this one forever. So I'll be quiet and pass it on.
And so for second grade science, we're going to do a lot of hands-on experiments and try to really make science a lot of fun, lots of hands-on stuff, and then even some project-based learning as well. So for first quarter, we'll be starting with Earth systems. So we'll be looking at where water is located on Earth, how to find it. And then we'll be talking about how wind and water can change the shape of the land. So we'll be really talking about erosion. And then we'll be explaining how some events on Earth occur quickly and how some others occur slowly. So we'll be talking about earthquakes, volcanoes, even landslides, and then, like I said, erosion as well. For second quarter, we'll be talking about plants and biodiversity. So we'll see how plants depend on water and light to grow, and how they even depend on animals for pollination and to move their seeds. And then we'll explain how a range of different organisms live in different places and how they interact with each other. In third quarter, and this is probably one of my favorite quarters because we really get to dive in into some different experiments. But we'll be working on states of matter. So we'll explain how matter exists in different states. And then we'll classify different materials and their properties, how some things are rough, how some things bend. And we'll also look at how different objects can be disassembled and made into new objects. And then we'll talk about how some things can be reversed and some things cannot be reversed. So we'll be doing a lot of hands-on experiments during third quarter as well. And then the fourth quarter, this is my favorite time of the year because we get to do passion projects. And passion projects is where students get to really take ownership of their learning, and they get to choose a topic that they are passionate about, and then they get to research it, prepare a presentation, and then they get to present their project to their peers. And so it's really fun to see students really get into this and to see how much fun they have with it.
Okay, so that takes us to first grade social studies. So these are the units that we're going to cover in quarter one. We started with historical events, understanding chronological events, primary and secondary sources, and cultural awareness. And the primary and secondary sources, these are some of the new standards that we have, but it's basically just talking about like where we get the information from. A primary source would be you're there, you're the person that's actually witnessing it, and you're getting to see what's going on firsthand. And your secondary source is you're getting information secondhand from somebody else. So that was kind of fun for the kids to talk about. We always play that game telephone, and they have to talk and pass the information around. So it was kind of a good way for them to kind of go, oh, wait a minute, it changes as the information is handed down. So teaching them about, really looking up the information for themselves and going to that source. And we did some timelines. We looked at some historical people and the events in their life. And then second quarter, we're going to do geography. So we're going to talk about some places and spaces using different geographical tools. They'll learn about the compass rose, just the main cardinal directions, and understanding the characteristics within certain communities and how people use certain resources within those communities. And then third quarter, we're going to talk about economics. And this is usually when we have JA in a day come. Remember pre-COVID when we were able to have them come in, parents volunteered. Hopefully some of you will volunteer to come in and teach some of these classes. But it's a lot of fun for the kiddos because they really get immersed into real world learning. So it's really fun, and they get to understand different jobs and how people earn income. And they'll also get to talk about saving money, sharing money, and how to spend that money very carefully. And then fourth quarter, it's going to be civics. We're going to talk about notable places and holidays, civic holidays, and understanding how effective groups have responsible leaders and team members, what it means to be a responsible team leader and a responsible leader in your community. So those will be some topics that we share about in our civics. Now we're going to move on to second grade social studies.
All right, so this quarter we have already been talking about geography in second grade. We've actually just gave the post test for that today. So we just wrapped that unit up, and we're going to be moving on to science when we come back from our little long weekend. So we talked about maps and globes. We talked about the features of using those tools such as map keys, legends, the symbols. We talked about different map features such as land, water, lakes, and we talked about a variety of maps such as political maps or now I'm drawing a blank on the other one, political and help me out, Mr. Gale. I had the total
Political maps, physical maps.
Physical maps, thank you. I know the word, I'm just tired. And physical maps. So we talked about mountains, rivers, lakes, those sort of things on a map, and the difference between a map that shows human and cultural things that are created, and then maps that show things that are from nature. So we wrap that up. And at the end of the unit, we discussed renewable and non-renewable resources. So we went into natural resources such as wind, air, solar, water, plants, things like that as renewable resources. And we talked about non-renewable resources such as fossil fuels, oil, gasoline, rocks and minerals, things like that. And we talked about how We can use up the non-renewable resources, and yes, they can renew, but it takes thousands or millions of years for them to regenerate. Whereas renewable resources we have, it takes a much shorter time span for them to regenerate and become new again. So second quarter, we're going to be talking about some history. We're going to talk about history of communities. We're going to talk about people and cultures that shaped communities, and cultures that have lived in or migrated to neighborhoods and communities as well. In third quarter, we're going to be getting into economics. We're going to discuss the idea of scarcity, meaning how communities and people within the communities deal when there's not enough of a resource for them. So how communities that don't have enough of a clean water source, how they make their decisions on how to use the water that's available to them, and other resources as well. We'll talk about goods and services as different things that people sell, like such as clothing, electronics are goods, services being like doctors or teachers. And we'll talk about costs and benefits of making purchases. We're going to talk about how communities can improve over time. And so that's the civics part of it, is we're going to be talking about how communities improve over time and understanding how people within the community can resolve conflicts and understand differences. Then again, in fourth quarter, we're going to be doing all of fourth quarter for social studies and science is the passion projects, which Mr. Gale talked about. One thing I want to add about that I especially love about fourth quarter being passion projects is that this really is one of those moments where we talk about how we teach the gifted education strategies to all the kids. This is the perfect example of that, because a lot of gifted children have one specific area of passion that they're interested in. It might be something random like the Titanic or trains or whatever it is. This gives them that opportunity it gives all the children the opportunity to tell us everything they know and do the research and learn as much as they can about their passion and then put it into practice. So some kids might want to choose Pokemon or Minecraft. We're going to encourage them to choose something that is a little bit broader that they can really dive deep into. Some of those things, while they could talk to us for days, and I'm a mom, so I know they talk to us about Pokemon or Minecraft for days. We're going to try to just steer them to an interest that there is information out there that we can do the research and we can use those skills to make a great presentation about. So I just wanted to put that in there, that's a perfect example of how Westgate uses GT strategies for all kids, gives those opportunities to all kids. And it'll be great for the GT kids as well. It'll be a great thing for them to do. So it's so much fun. Your kids are going to love it. And I know the first graders look forward to coming to second grade because of the passion projects. Like, it's a thing. It's like a rite of passage. You come to second grade at Westgate, you get to do the passion projects. I'm going to talk about standards-based grading as well. I've been using this method of grading for all of my teaching career, so I have quite a bit of experience with it. We just wanted to talk about the difference between the traditional grading system and standards-based, because we were all raised with the traditional one, and the way that we're used to grading is with the ABCDF. Our grades were based on a percentage. We had grades for quizzes, homeworks, tests, classwork, and then we got an average of all of our grades. So there was things recorded in a grade book. It could include extra credit or zeros given. And then at the end, all of those things were added up into an average, and you were given one percentage grade that equated to one of those letters. That is not what we're doing anymore. And there's a lot of great reasons for it. Standards-based grading is we're taking the state standards or the national standards that are set out for us and what things we are required to teach according to the states and according to the standards. Well, what we're doing is we're grading on how well the student is working on meeting that standard or not. So there's learning goals, there's performance standards, there's no extra credit, there's no zeros given. The intent is focused on the learning and not on what the kids are producing or doing in class. So it's a lot more learning focused, so it's a different shift than what we might be used to. So I like this graphic because I like that it compared them. Both grading systems use numbers or letters. They both were, convey student progress. We use standards-based grading from kinder all the way through 12th, just like the other grading system did. And we are using multiple pieces of evidence to create the grade, just like in the traditional grading system. So the next slide shows what the grading system is. So at Westgate, in Adams 12, and in every other district I've worked in the metro area, DPS and Aurora, that we all use this. So this is pretty universal at this point. I'm going to start with 4. 4 is going to be a rare grade that many of you will never see on your child's report card. And the reason for that is that it exceeds the standard. So this might be a kid, let's say we give a test and we give a challenge question at the bottom of the test that is something from the next grade level standard up, but it's not something we've taught before. So it's not expected that everybody will know that. So your child might, if they can answer that, if they know that, or if they can consistently show us in another way that they know the next level, or they're reaching towards the next level of proficiency, then they would get a 4. But like I said, it's totally different than the ABCDF system. 4 does not equate an A. In fact, I would say a 3 would be more equivalent to an A, because a 3 means that the child consistently meets the standards and they're ready to move on to the next level of proficiency. So let's say the standard is having the kids using capitals and periods. If they are consistently doing that day in, day out, all the time, multiple ways, they've shown us that on multiple assignments, then they would get a 3. So you might have a child who in math, they are working on a standard and they get a 3 on it this day, but they might not get it as much in a different format another day. So then they wouldn't be meeting the standard because they're not consistently meeting it. I hope that makes sense. So the 2 is a very, very broad number, because 2 is approaching the standard. So they would maybe be able to tell us part of the answer, or they are inconsistently showing it. So they can show us today, but not tomorrow. They can show us when we do this format, but not that format. Here, a simple example would be if the addition problem is stacked vertical, they can do it, but when it's side by side, they can't. Well, that's telling us they don't know that mathematical standard consistently. So we're looking for that consistent, yeah, they've got this, it's done. A 2 is maybe partial understandings. They might be beginning to meet it. They might be inconsistently meeting it. Some kids might need a little more time. They might need a little extra reteaching, or they can do it if we help them. So if they're consistently doing it, but they need our help each time, that would still be a 2. So if we have to prompt them to get them to the answer, that would be a 2. So you will see a lot of 2s on your, sorry, there's a fly in here, a lot of student work coming home as they're learning. So 2 means I'm still learning this. 3 means I've learned it. So those are the 2 numbers that you should expect to see. On the report cards, the numbers you hope to see would be a 3, and you might see a 2. Sometimes you'll see a 2 because we'll come back to it later. Sometimes you'll see a 2 because it's a partial understanding. Now, a 1 is also more of a rare thing. This means the child has really struggled with the standard. They can only demonstrate a small part of the problem, or just the beginnings of that understanding is there. They require an extended amount of time to figure it out, or they require a lot of instruction, a lot of additional instruction, or a lot of practice or assistance. So we don't give out a ton of 1s. We don't give out a ton of 4s. We only give the 3s when we're meeting there. So expect to see quite a few of the 2s. I think that about covers it. It can be very confusing. So feel free to email me or any of your child's teachers, and we will be happy to answer those questions for you some more. Also, all of our admin team is extremely knowledgeable about standards-based grading. And we can talk about it some more at conferences too. As those report cards come out, you might be like, why are they getting a 2 on this particular standard, but they're getting a 3 on this one? So geometry might be harder for them, whereas addition and subtraction was easier, that sort of thing. So they're different standards, and so they have different things they're good at. I think that was it. Like Mrs. Foley Diaz, I can talk too much. But I do know quite a bit about it. So.
I think that was great. So we do have, yeah, that's it.
I was going to say, I think that's the end.
Do any of you have any questions for any of us that you would like to ask while we're at this point? I mean,
Let me just preface it. Questions about curriculum.
Yes.
Standards-based grading, RISE. We're happy to talk to you about your children, but not in front of the whole group.
Sorry, I just had a quick question about the spelling words. You were saying that, it's good for us to kind of practice using them at home and stuff. Do we have access to that list weekly or monthly or however they're kind of given out?
You will have it once we get the rosters. They're still Spelling City situated. So we're still getting our access back to Spelling City. But once we have that, then we'll be rostering all of our students into Spelling City. And so like usually I usually post it by Monday night, or by Sunday night, sorry. By Sunday night, you should be able to go into Spelling City and see what their words are. Okay. But that will be in there. So, but yes, you should be able to see those words when they're in there, and you'll be able to tell, because we'll be able to assign it per week. Mm-hmm. So you'll be able to see what those words are. But the main point of spelling, and I just kind of want to, this is one of my passionate areas of spelling, is it's not for our kids to memorize a list of words and just regurgitate it out for each week. It's really meant for them to be able to learn how to incorporate that into their writing and into their everyday skills. And so really and a lot of times when we give spelling tests, like if I say, okay, we're going to spell the word cat, I will segment the sounds for them, especially in the early few weeks of spelling, so that they get used to it. And because I want them to be able to do that same thing in their head and go, okay, cat, act, and be able to write each of those sounds that they hear, which is why it's so important. When your kids are asking you, can you spell this for me? My kids got really annoyed with me. They go, found it. And I was like, but that's the only way you're going to learn it. And, and they became really good spellers because of it. But it's really important because we want them to build on those skills. And just because kids are excellent readers doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be good spellers. They really need all of those skills, which is why, we don't really want to skip around a lot with the standards. It's important that they know all of them. And our English language can be confusing. So the more we can incorporate in there, the better. But please make sure your kids are understanding the rules behind it. And that's really what we'll focus on with spelling. So
yeah, I just want to add on to that, Ms. Hamilton, that what we're doing in spelling is we're teaching them the concepts. So for my class, second graders this week, we learned about long vowel sounds. So they had vowel pairs like A-I, E-E, O-A, but we also talked about long, like silent E. So I'm not as concerned that they know all the exact words that are on their list as I am concerned about the fact that when they hear a long vowel sound, they think about what we've talked about and they apply that to their writing. So if they hear a long vowel sound, they're writing a silent E, or they're trying to find the vowel pair that makes sense. So it's more the concepts than it is the exact words, because that again ties back to the standards-based grading. We're not as worried about their grade on the spelling test as we are about whether or not they're getting the spelling concepts themselves. But to answer your question, they'll be on our weekly update that we post and email out every week, and they'll be on Spelling City.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That was a long answer.
No, it's very thorough. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, so we know it's a lot harder. We appreciate you guys being very patient to do this online with us. I know it was kind of last minute, but we just felt like with the COVID cases and stuff on the rise, it was just safer. So anything that if there's things that you forget and you think about later that you want to ask us, we really encourage you to email us. Just reach out and just ask, because you're not going to know unless you ask. And so, and we really appreciate hearing from you guys. So anytime. And as there's a question on the chat, what is the plan for curriculum when quarantines happen? Usually there won't be a whole class sent home. But a lot of that will have to do, those are more questions for admin as far as when that comes up. So I don't really have a lot of answers for you for that. Does anybody else have a question? We will be sending packets home if they
I
are.
wanted to just add that we're not going to be, as far as we've heard, the plan is not to switch to remote learning. We're going to be sending packets home to specific kids in classes who are quarantined, because the goal is to keep everybody in school as much as possible. But those are great questions for the admin, because they know all those details and they speak with public health on a regular basis.
Does anybody else have any questions that they want to?
Hey guys, I have a second grader dying to know what the field trip plans are for this year.
None. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Tell her no. No, I'm just kidding. No, we are in the midst of working on that. We've got a few that are planned. Second grade, do you want to speak to that real quick?
Yes, the first one that we have planned is in October. I believe it's like October 14, possibly. And we're going to be going to the Bird Conservatory at Bar Lake. So that one is the first one that we have on the schedule. We've talked about several different ones. It is tricky right now to schedule field trips and get them, because a lot of the ones that we want have COVID restrictions. So since both grades are going to be learning about time and money, we thought it might be fun to go to the Mint, but the Mint is being like super locked down right now. So we're working out some of those great ideas that we've had and looking into what we can do. But yes, we're planning on field trips as long as we're in person. They are happening, because kids didn't get them last year.
Awesome, thank you.
I have a couple questions. My daughter is in first grade. So first of all, let me just say that she loves all of you. She gets Mr. Gale, she's in Miss Foley Diaz's class, and then she has you, Miss Hamilton, as well. So she comes home and it really does, I think, enjoy the variety and moving around. I'm interested to know, maybe you can explain it a little bit for me. When do they get reevaluated and or potentially moved, and how do we know when that happens?
So first graders are going to be just doing first grade content, and then second grade will be doing second grade content. Now, one of the classes, the pacing may be a little bit different. Like we may have some first graders that move at a little bit faster pace, but we'll be notifying you when we move them. Right now, they're still pretty fluid because we want to make sure that we get right places. And at the beginning of the year, kids are pretty, especially new kiddos, are a little nervous, so they don't really show us all that they know. So a lot of that stuff we kind of find out once we get them in class and we do some observations and we kind of watch and do a lot of informal assessments with them. So we've kind of been doing a little bit of shifting over the last couple of weeks. We are going to be getting you guys all into your EdLeos. I think we're going to just end up subscribing you to your literacy and math EdLeo pages. That's our the website that we use. I think that will be easier for us to do that. I haven't talked to my team, so they may kill me later, but we'll probably I think it'll be better if we just subscribe you to them, and then that way you know exactly what the content is. But you're welcome to go on to the website anytime, and you can go to the 1-2 pages. If your child's a first grader, look at one of the 2 first grade math classes, because we're all doing pretty much the same thing. But within each of the programs, we'll be differentiating based on their needs. If they need to move a little bit faster with some content, then we'll be scaffolding within our classrooms to do that, to make sure we meet their needs. So, and we're able to do that quite a bit. And with the Big Ideas math program too, it makes it a lot easier for us to differentiate and scaffold to meet all of those learning needs within those same content classes. So, so that's kind of how we'll, but if we need to move them between the first grade classes, maybe we're starting a unit and your child's moving a little bit slower, and so they need us to really kind of do some more reteaching with that, we'll let you know if we do that shifting. We always like to partner with parents and make sure that you also have a say-so, because you know, sometimes kids don't do better if they feel a little bit challenged or if things are moving a lot faster. Some kids, you know, they tend to feel a little more confident if they're right on grade level. If they feel like, yes, I know what I'm doing and I'm not having to really ask all the questions, and that's just where they feel the most comfortable. So we take a lot of the social emotional part of it into consideration as much as the academic. I mean, we really weigh both of them out when we consider where we're going to place them. So, but we're happy to answer any of those questions in emails too, and we can talk more about it at conferences. So.
Okay, great. Can I ask two real quick, simple ones, hopefully? The second grader question obviously makes me think, are there plans for first grade field trips? That would be good to know ahead of time, especially for those of us that kind of have to try to plan ahead if you are requiring or asking for, you know, parent participation. So that would be helpful to know. And then one that has come up, I know Westgate, you know, really focuses on a reuse and a recycle kind of program. And I think has taught, at least my daughter last year kind of came back with that. But this year it seems to be a little bit challenging to execute that because of snack time and the fact that they're going to other classes. So I know she shared, well, I can't bring this back home. And I'm just curious, is there an easy solution that I can help with?
They should be able to bring stuff back home because we have snack bins and they travel back and forth to the classes. And so like, I know all of us, once snack time is over, we tell them, you know, if you haven't finished your snack, feel free to put it in the snack bin and you can put it, and most of the time they put it back in their lunch boxes and bring it back home. So there's usually, I have a lot of parents that will send the reusable bags, and those are totally fine. Part of it is us trying to get them to not throw them away, to bring them back. So if you want your child to bring things like that home, you can shoot your child's advocacy teacher an email and say, hey, will you make sure so-and-so is not just, because, you know, those do get expensive to have to keep replacing those. Now, we have had some issues with recycling. I guess they don't have enough drivers to pick up a lot of the recycling. So that's kind of been an issue, but not anything that's within our control. I think I'm blaming it all on COVID. So we are really trying to get back into that. We want to do the composting again within our pods and that kind of thing. So we still do a lot of recycling. The problem is right now we just don't have anybody picking it up. So we'll but yeah, so it's been kind of tricky. But your child should be able to bring whatever it is. They could totally bring that back home. We don't have any. We always transport them right back and forth. So.
Okay, then maybe that's where she's confused because she's like, I don't have my lunch bag. I take it out and it goes to my other class. And so if it's a reusable bag, I just figure I would reuse it a little bit. And so anyway, absolutely. I'll help her then explain and that. Just
encourage her to talk to her advocacy teacher too about it.
Sure.
Okay. So that way we can make sure.
Okay, so, sounds great.
Yeah, all of that's really helpful for us to know. And if something happens, like we would rather know, like if you have a pet that dies, or you have something that's pretty traumatic, or you have a spouse, maybe somebody's going out of town, all of those things are really good to let your child's advocate know so that we can kind of head off any issues that they may be having. Sometimes they may just be really sad because a parent's out of town for the week. Those are good things for you to email us and let us know, because then we can support them better at school instead of just going, okay, why are they acting like that? And us wondering. We would rather know up front rather than just kind of guess and try to figure out what's going on with them. So.
Sure. Well, thank you guys.
You're very welcome. Oh, and the one thing I always say to parents, just as a reminder, it's something I always live by as a parent myself, but if I always tell my parents, if you don't believe everything your child comes home and says about me, I won't believe everything your child comes to school and says about what happens in your house. So remember that. Just so think about that for a second, because kids love to share way more. And when they're sitting at their lunch tables, and sometimes your kids may come home and say, oh my gosh, this weird thing happened. Just shoot us an email and say, hey, my child said something a little odd today. Can you kind of give me some clarification? Those are always really good emails to send as well. And we would do the same thing. If your child came to school and shared something, and would be like, just a heads up, this is what was shared today, just so that you know. Because really we are a community and we want to make sure that we keep you guys in the loop. So if you guys could do the same thing for us, but just kind of think about the things that your child would share, and you'd be like, oh no, please don't say that. It happens more than you know. So we always try to kind of give the benefit of the doubt. So we just ask that you do the same thing when they come home, and we're always happy to kind of fill in any gaps that they may leave out, or maybe they just don't know. So, but I'd like to say that at curriculum.
Just to add on to that, I wanted to say, Ms. Hamilton, that we were talking about vowel pair EE, and one of the kids came up with the word beer. And then I had a whole ton of kids telling me what alcoholic drinks their parents drink, which just made me so happy as a teacher. I just laughed and laughed. So that's like a perfect example of like whatever, I'm not going to take everything and take notes on everything they're saying, but they do share with us sometimes a little bit too much. Sometimes they share partial parts of the story or something they heard part of and they didn't get the whole picture. So I know that's the same thing that happens in your house. So we just appreciate that too.
And there's never any judgment, just so you know. And we ask the same. Yes, it's always interesting. You never know what's going to come out of their mouth, but it's always precious. So we love every minute of it. I have a whole journal full of stuff that children say to me. So it's really cool. Does anybody else have any questions? And this will be recorded, and I believe, are we going to post it and send it out, Miss Reader? We're going to send the link out.
I thought we were just emailing it, but it's a good idea to probably put it in a Leo update on. You can also find the updates on the Westgate website under teachers and classes. So it's always posted there. So we could post it there and we can email it. That way you have access to it. And some email inboxes just get drowned with emails. So we could try it a couple ways.
But if you can't find it, just reach out to us and let us know, and we will make sure that you have it.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat about it seems like there's a lot of external sites that we'll need to access. So it's Super Kids and Spelling City, and we might do math later in the year, but yes, we would be happy to send those out with you and let you know what your child's passwords are. I don't think that is too much to ask at all. That's a great idea. Something we hadn't talked about yet, but I think it's a great idea. And maybe like she said, maybe everybody else will not appreciate me speaking for them, but.
Is there anything else anybody can think about? Any questions?
I just want to say before we end that you have lovely children, and the majority of them are almost every child in the class is extremely kind and caring, and we've been talking about empathy, and they get it, and they have been showing it, and it's such a delight to see what these kids are capable of, and we love sharing them with you. My daughter is new to Westgate this year, and she's like, Mom, it is almost weird how many people ask you if you're okay when you fall down at Westgate, which I thought was hilarious because it's true. There are so many caring people at Westgate, and kids included. They're very inclusive, and they're very sweet and kind, and I just think your kids are wonderful. So thank you.
Yes, they really are. Thanks for sharing them with us and trusting us with them. I'm glad we can teach them and share. Hopefully we can keep that going. Anything else that you guys, thank you so much for your kind comments. Yeah, it's been a little tricky this year, but it's been a lot better than last year. We're all so thankful. And your kids are doing a great job wearing their masks. Please remember to send your child with a water bottle. because that's really super important. And at least 2 masks, because sometimes there's break. We have some extras here, but if you could send them with 2, that would be great.
Yes,
What
and-
happens at lunch with those masks?
Yeah, and the water bottle, we're asking for water bottles because the drinking fountains are closed. So if your child doesn't come with a water fountain or with a water bottle, the front desk gives out these little Dixie-sized cups to the kids. So they get like a very small amount of water at a time. It's like a couple of sips. So just send them with a water bottle, please. It would
Water
make
bottle
everything
and
so much
mask.
easier. Water bottle, and then the masks. Like some of the kids have been biting their masks or chewing holes in the front of the paper ones. So the reusable ones are nice because they can't. It's a lot harder for them to chew a hole in it. Or for them to break it. So we always have extra masks just in case of mishaps, but it would help us cut down on all that waste with the cups and the masks to have the kids bringing them.
And label everything, please. I've been trying to label stuff as they leave my room, but make sure that you try to label as much as you can. So that way it's easier for us to figure out who things belong to. So
yes, including
try
snacks.
hard to keep them. Yes.
Because the
Yes.
snacks travel between the rooms, so they put their snack in a bin, and so if their name is not on the snack, then sometimes there can be some mix-up. So if you're like sending them with a granola bar or a cup of peaches or something, just write their initials or their name or something so that they know it's theirs.
And if you forget, we sometimes do that in advocacy before we switch. There's just a lot of time, but yeah. So if you could help them remember to do that, that would be great. And that way, if there's no mix-ups with all of it. So yeah, if there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and we will end the meeting. If there's anything that you guys think of, please send us an email and just feel free to ask because we're always here to answer the questions. Things are going to change, but thank you guys for being so patient. I know that the quarantines are not as wonderful as what we'd like, but at least a lot of our kids are staying healthy. And I think the mask really helped that a great deal, even with all of because we don't see a lot of the norovirus and a lot of the other stuff that we used to see prior to masks. So there is a good side to all of that our kids are staying a lot healthier. So, and for me, I'm excited. The snacks in the basket, those are, well, only your child has their, I mean, they have talked a lot about how COVID, like it's not on the surfaces as much as what they thought it was. But they're all individually wrapped as well. So the snacks are individually wrapped. So they're not touching each other's stuff.
Yeah. So if let's say they bring an apple, could you maybe put it in a bag so that their food is not touching other kids' food? That would be one way to prevent it. But that's a great point.
Yep.
But the food that's going in their bodies shouldn't be touching other kids' food.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I sure appreciate it. And if there's anything else that you need, just let me know. All right. We'll see you guys later. Thank you. Bye.